When I think of JRPGs, I am always reminded of what drew me to them as a kid and what keeps me coming back to this day. And that is simply the sense of adventure and escape that great JRPGs have the power to instill in us. Stories that can have profound impacts on our lives and even shape the way we view the world and interact with each other. While at the same time, of course, just being mindless fun that we can sink hours and hours into as we sink deeper and deeper into our sofa. So with that being said, sit back in that old sofa hole and let's talk about my top 5 favorite JRPGs of all time and the ones that I recommend the most. At number 5, we have Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete, a 1998 remaster of the 1994 Sega Saturn JRPG Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. I discovered this game for the first time all the way back when I was 14 years old, looking for a colorful, nostalgic anime-esque JRPG that had fond memories of playing as a kid on the SNES, but haven't really discovered yet on the PlayStation. Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete, without a doubt, checked all of those boxes. With gorgeous art design by Toshiyuki Kubo, this game feels so alive with all of the detail in the overworld, dungeons, and towns that are so vibrant and full of NPCs to converse with while you explore and take in the beauty of each town you visit. Taking place 1,000 years after the events of Silver Star, this game acts as a direct sequel, as direct as a sequel set 1,000 years in the future can be, with many of the characters from the original being seen as historic heroes and references the events of the original, which is a very nice touch and acts as further expansion of the incredible world of Lunar. The battle system is the classic turn-based style with standard options of attack, defend, and flee. The game also gives you the option to use the AI function, in case you just don't feel like playing through every single fight, which does come in handy, since with this being a classic JRPG, battles are frequent. One of the nicest aspects about the battle system is that when you select an enemy to attack, it will immediately show you if the enemy will be weak or strong towards the attack. This is displayed via a color system, with the enemy turning either a shade of green, yellow, or red. This will definitely take a lot of guesswork out of finding which attack the enemy is weak towards without all the trial and error. It's nice to have these little enhancements in the battle UI, because the battles in Lunar 2 can be very challenging at times, with bosses and even simple enemies able to inflict a ton of damage to your party, making every decision important and weighted, especially the further you progress with more abilities and party members. The pixel art design is very reminiscent of JRPGs from previous generations. However, the design team clearly took the power of their PlayStation in using some beautiful and crisp colors and creating a bright and vibrant world, with some of the best anime-style 2D graphics in any JRPG. The soundtrack is some of the best music that I've heard in any RPG that I've ever played, with a memorable overworld theme, a catchy battle theme, and the music that plays while you're in creepy dungeons just suits every environment perfectly. All in all, regardless if you've played the original Lunar 2 on the Saturn, or if this is your first time getting into the series, Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete is a timeless JRPG experience that I highly recommend. The 1990s were well known for weird, gross-out culture, which of course brings us to number 4 on the list with the 1994 release of Mother 2 in Japan, better known as Earthbound here in the West. Definitely taking full advantage of this decade as you battle your way through enemies such as Snot, Vomit, and those damn hippies, just to name a few. Following the adventures of Ness, a kid growing up in the town of Onat in the fictional country of Eagle Land. You're woken up in the middle of the night by a meteorite landing in your home, and then shortly after, you set out to discover its origins. A little bee-like creature aptly named Buzz tells you that the evil entity known as Gygus has invaded the planet and that you must travel the world to find the 8 melodies in order to stop him. All while meeting like-minded and ever so odd party members, Jeff, Paula, and Pooh. Don't allow the simplistic nature of Earthbound to fool you, because it is loaded with content and tons of areas and towns to explore, as you play through this charming adventure full of comedy that can span from lighthearted jokes to satirical monologue about Western culture. Featuring a turn-based battle system where only the enemies are present, your health runs off this rolling odometer-style number system. The simplistic system takes a little time to adjust to. However, even if you take a fatal blow with the odometer-style health system, you still have the chance to attack the enemy and defeat him before you die. The dialogue is one of the key highlights of Earthbound, with some of the most memorable and quirky dialogue lines ever written for a JRPG before or since. Itoi's humor and intelligence is on full display, and never seems to take the audience for granted or assume that we won't get a joke. The soundtrack fits the world and characters so well, incorporating a jazzy feel to the tracks, leaving a feeling of otherworldliness, and it is spot on what Earthbound needed. If you haven't played through this incredible, one-of-a-kind JRPG, then you are in luck because you can play Earthbound right now on the SNES portion of the Switch Online. But regardless how you play this game, I recommend that you do so immediately. Just not yet. Please finish this video first. Coming in at number 3, we have Wild Arms. It's one of the very first JRPGs that I ever played on the original PlayStation. Wild Arms instantly became one of my all-time favorites and still remains so to this day. Immediately separating itself from the majority of JRPGs that came before, primarily set in the medieval style era, Wild Arms is based in a pseudo Wild West setting. Still having some castles and cathedrals sprawled about the world of Filgaia, Wild Arms feels like a spaghetti western meets Final Fantasy, complete with music that is heavily inspired by western epics. Starting up the game, you are given the chance to select Rudy, the young dream chaser who possesses the power of the arms, ancient and powerful weapons that resembles firearms. Cecilia, a young princess that has been studying magic at the Kirin Abbey, and as her 17th birthday approaches, a strange voice begins speaking to her from an ancient book. And Jack, a treasure hunter who explores ancient ruins in search of riches with his sidekick, Handpan, a talkative wind mouse that acts as a tool to grab out-of-reach items or to activate switches on the other side of holes. You'll play as each of these characters during a brief individual story that sets them off into the world before they all meet up in a town and become a party of 3 for the remainder of the game. The story is fairly traditional, situated around you attempting to stop the remaining group of villains known as the Metal Demons from reincarnating their leader known as Mother. However, the simplicity of the story is marked by some surprising emotional moments and plot twists. Playing a JRPG with a story that isn't bogged down by constantly branching story arcs and vague meanings is refreshing at times. The combat is of course turn-based, with you encountering random battles in the overworld and dungeons. And while the entire game is primarily done in a pixel art style, upon entering battle the combat is done in full 3D. Now, yeah, let's be honest, these graphics here are what you may call butt ugly. I honestly have no idea why they decided to go this route. However, after the first couple of battles you do get used to it, especially with the really catchy battle music. The soundtrack is of course another big standout of the game, being composed by Michiko Naruke. The songs dive heavily into the old western style, with epic arrangements and quiet interludes. The intro, Into the Wilderness, arranged by Toyama, is one of the catchiest and fitting intros that I've ever heard. I have seriously been humming or whistling the melody at random times ever since I first heard this beautiful track. Wild Arms is a simple yet very effective old school style JRPG that I am an absolute sucker for. You can of course play this game on original hardware by downloading a ROM, or if you are one of the very few people who got one of the PS1 classics, it is available on that, albeit it being the PAL version. Not going back to that. And at number 2 we have Alundra. This is a game that I've talked about in a previous video, but I feel that it deserves another shout out on this list. Being one of my favorite action JRPGs, I never feel that this game gets enough recognition. Taking the role of Alundra, you embark on a quest to save the world from an evil entity that is entering into people's dreams, causing nightmares and killing the victim in the process. You begin your adventure after wake up on shore after the ship you were on was jacked up really badly during a storm. The gameplay and action are very well done, similar to the top-down Zelda games, Illusion of Gaia, and Landstalker, the latter being where a large portion of the development team came from. With hack-and-slash action using a variety of weapons, including swords and maces, and the use of other tools and accessories, the graphics are very well done, looking every bit the way I would imagine a Zelda game would look like if it were a Sony IP instead of a Nintendo. With a nice variety of enemies, challenging puzzles, and boss fights, this game is a no-brainer if you're into that classic style of action RPG. With some really beautiful world design of multiple environments, including creepy manors, crypts, swamps, graveyards, and caves, throughout all of which you'll be able to collect health and currency used for purchasing new items in the shop. With a wide array of weapons at your disposal that you'll discover or earn throughout your playthrough, ranging from the dagger that you begin with to flails, swords, magical wands, and bows. You'll obtain more than enough weapons to keep things fresh and interesting, along with a wide assortment of items and support weapons with the inclusion of defensive gear such as armor and boots. With the ability to sprint and jump in order to evade attacks or to claim out-of-reach items, the gameplay is very reminiscent, again, of action RPGs of the past, but with a more refined structure and a higher attention to detail and fluidity. And finally, at number 1, this game is not only my favorite JRPG of all time, but I'd definitely say it's also my favorite video game of all time. And that, my friends, is of course Chrono Trigger. Squaresoft's 1995 JRPG masterpiece I first played this game after randomly seeing it on the shelf of my local Blockbuster during a Friday night as a kid, and I had no idea how much this game would end up meaning to me all these decades later, acting as a filter that I would view every JRPG going forward, and still revisiting to this day, acting almost like a photo album of memories from my childhood. Chrono Trigger starts out with you as the main character, Chrono, as you wake up on the morning of the Millennial Fair. As you make your way to the fair in order to see your friend Luca's new invention, leading you on an adventure of time travel as you and your friends try to stop the resurrection of a world-destroying demon called Lavos. The time travel segments are done so well throughout the game, leading to some truly incredible moments. These time travel elements came from the desire of the creators of the game to utilize the full potential of the Super Nintendo hardware. By utilizing the same assets throughout each era, the developers were able to save memory space, not having to create an entire new world for each era that you visit. The combat alone is a huge testament to just how game-changing Chrono Trigger really was. Instead of the turn-based battle sequence taking place in another screen, Chrono allows for combat on the exact same field where you encounter the monster. Now I know that this may not sound like much of anything today, but back then this was a huge departure from how traditional turn-based mechanics worked. The combat is also enhanced by allowing your characters to not only have the abilities of the standard attack and magic, known as techs, but also gives you the ability to use double and triple techs by utilizing multiple characters at one time. It works similar to the pet power in Dragon Quest XI, where you can use them solo, or once a dual ability is learned, you can use that for a lot more damage. The animations still seriously hold up to this day, with the timeless pixel art style designed by the late Akira Toriyama. Best known as the renowned artist who created the anime series Dragon Ball, Toriyama also worked on many JRPGs such as the Dragon Quest series. As a kid, I really never realized how big of an impact one particular artist would have on my life, but Toriyama not only helped create my favorite game of all time, but along with Dragon Quest, one of my favorite JRPG series that I still love to this day. He truly is one of the greats, and his work will be sorely missed. Rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. The soundtrack can also not be understated. It's one of the best soundtracks in JRPG history, composed by Misunori Mitsuda. The tracks are minimalistic masterpieces, capturing the moment with sparse arrangements such as the battle theme, the funk-inspired bass-heavy riff during a segment in the future, the powerful main theme, or my favorite, Frog's theme, that takes inspiration from medieval elements. Mitsuda is without a doubt a master of his craft, and this debut score of his demonstrates that in full. With all the immediately relatable and well-written characters, it's impossible not to become attached to the characters and engage in their story. With over 10 different endings depending on the choices that you make, Chrono Trigger has a ton of replay value, and is a title that I still come back to every couple of years to play through again. While the original Super Nintendo version is of course the standard, the DS version is by far my favorite, and is what is widely considered as the definitive edition. And you can always pick it up on Steam, which is an okay way to play it. However, they did modernize the text boxes, among other things such as the Vaseline smear style graphics. Not my cup of tea, but Chrono Trigger is still Chrono Trigger at the end of the day. But what do you guys think? What are your top 5 favorite JRPGs of all time? Let me know that and everything else in the comments below. And if you enjoy this channel, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. It would really help the channel grow, and I would definitely appreciate it. But most importantly, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.